All three of you are, for the most part, bull Palantir, right? I know that top two are. Steve, you are too, right?
Yeah, for the long term. I mean, it can do anything in the short term, but for the long term, until they give me a reason not to be, I am bullish.
So that's the whole thing. Like, I get the long term thing because I don't give a shit that it was at 20 and now it's at 13. I don't care. But my question for you, it's very hypothetical. It's a little outlandish, but I just wanted to ask you each. Maybe I could get you to both say a bear case and a bull case for the year that Palantir will hit 100.
Okay, so the question is, when does Palantir hit 100? And I guess the better framing of the question is, what is the bear case for Palantir never getting to $100, which is a $200 billion market cap, versus them getting to $100, which would be $200 billion. That's $200 billion, right? $100. Yeah, 200 times 2 billion shares. Yeah, so 200.
Or you could just give an over under, like, and that's your rough estimate. But say things go decently well, not extraordinary. Maybe it's 2040, maybe it's 2030, maybe it's.
It's a good question.
So it's what, a 6x, 7x?
From here? Yeah. Yeah, 6x. Okay, so what is the bull or bear case to have a 6x on Palantir from these valuations? I'll go first. I think the bull case is AIP. So I was thinking about AIP, right? We have 400 clients. We're charging 2.9 million per average from client right now. The real hard part we're all stuck in, the conundrum, the paradox, the weird kind of situation is what is AIP worth? Because if it's worth more than 2.9 million a year for each of these clients, if it's worth, let's say 5 million times 400 clients, there's your 2 billion right there, right? 2 billion right there in annual recurring revenue, 5 million off of 400 clients. Now, maybe I'm totally wrong. Maybe it's worth 150,000 a month. Maybe there's no way it's worth 5 million. I don't know. But until we know what the value of an LLM is for an enterprise and like a fully integrated operating system combined with that LLM, because that's what it would be. I don't think it would just be an LLM for sales or marketing. It would be for the entire organization. We have no idea. If that scales out and these 400 clients go to like 2,000 clients by 2030, 2035-ish, that's where I think we get to $100 a share in a $200 billion company. Okay. I think AIP has to play out. I think there's nothing else that I can think of as a major bull case outside of that, unless they introduce some new product that we don't know yet. How does AIP scale? It has to go through all these different sectors, energy, healthcare, et cetera.
Would you say AIP is like, it's the stepping stone to get people in and then sell them, right? That's what everyone's been saying. It's got to be, right?
Yeah, I mean, because Sean was talking on the earnings call that Foundry and the ontology is like a gateway towards the LLM even being useful, giving it context and reality and all that stuff. And then Apollo has different use cases. And the way Palantir is framing it is, if generative AI is the future and what CodeStrap was saying on the Spaces the other day was like, he was trying to deal with some regulations and he like plugged in the regulation rule book, put it into AIP, and within 5 minutes, he was able to ask it any questions and get answers versus having to look through like thousands of pages. And that's one use case. So now imagine that use case in a whole fucking hospital or for like a whole fucking country's government. And so if that is correct, if all of us are correct on that thesis and enterprise spending actually becomes 10% of budgets, which is couple $1 trillion in the next 7-8 years on just AI spending, and there's more than LLMs in the next couple of years and Palantir's on the front lines, then yeah, I mean, there's your bull case. It should happen.
But what year? I know it's no one knows. I understand that. But if you had to guess, you got to give some kind of guess. It's like no one can hold you to it. No one
2032.
Can say, oh, he said this.
2032.
You're 2032?
Yeah, and I'm being extra conservative here because I don't want to say 2028 or anything like that. But I think I think that's what, 8 years from now? That's to get 100 a share in 8 years. I think it's reasonable. Yeah. I don't think that's crazy in 8 years.
No, I don't think so either.
The bear case is we can't sell this fucking product. Wall Street just never gets it because the growth isn't there. Databricks or Snowflake eats our lunch and they come up with a better generative AI application. I don't know if any of these things will happen. I don't think they will, but if they do, then yeah, we're screwed. So
yeah. I think a bull case, and I'll go off on a tangent as well. I think a bull case would be 2027. I do see an opportunity for us to get to about 2 billion in sort of adjusted net income in 2026. So an adjusted EPS of about $1. I'm anticipating that with buybacks and stuff of the like, we'll probably keep about $2 to $2.2 billion worth of, or sorry, 2 to 2.2 billion in share count. So I'm assuming, with that EPS being about $1, I think that you might be able to get to probably $1.25 or so in 2027. So I think you might see 2027 as a potential if you kind of use a price to earnings of about 40, right? So you're making $2 to $2.5 billion of adjusted net income. Multiply that by 40, you'll probably maybe be able to get to $100. But then again, it all kind of depends on kind of what you're doing. The thing that is kind of the outlier here, and kind of building on what Amit said, the thing that's beautiful, and maybe CodeStrap can kind of help me here if I'm not explaining it appropriately, is AIP, just based off of what I kind of understand here and based off what I listened to in the earnings call in 2Q, just a few weeks ago, is unlike any other product on the market because, and this is something that Crossroads kind of said to me the other day, and I didn't really understand it until I listened fully to the earnings report, is if a company like, what's the company that was on? There's a pharmaceutical, there's a Novartis or something like that, or I forget what company.
Novartis,
yeah, Novartis. So they have their own sort of ontology that they're using. They've kind of collaborated with Palantir. But say any company that has their own sort of ontology or classification network and has actually been working and understands, and they're actually in a step where they have things set up and organized to appropriately catalog within their sort of global operations, then they can use AIP without having to use Foundry, right? The thing that's beautiful about Foundry is because I think a lot of people, they're like, oh yeah, data analytics is great. But it's like, I think a lot of people don't truly know how to appropriately categorize data throughout. And that's the beauty of Foundry. And that's why I think everyone's just kind of catching up to where a lot of the Foundry stuff that was kind of going on in 2016, 2017, why they keep saying they're 5 years ahead. I think people are just kind of getting into the data analytics piece. So anyway, I think that there's where a lot of people might be like, oh, well, let me use ChatGPT or OpenAI or this. It's like, well, they're going to soon find out that product doesn't actually do shit because they're basically their product isn't really set up. Their data isn't set up to be actually use it in a manner which they can use an AIP like product. And so I agree with kind of what you said earlier, Scott, which is AIP connects in directly to any sort of database that is appropriately set up. And you can then use that to accelerate and set up guide rails to manipulate data or do tasks on behalf of yourself. And set up procedures to automatically execute or set up decisions for you to kind of make decisions on. So anyway, it's super, super interesting sort of shit. But I think that could accelerate it and get you to a $2 to $2.5 billion net income by 2027.
So from my own understanding, Palantir's LLM, it's not like ChatGPT. It's more geared towards the company. It takes all the company's questions and everything that's going on, and it's geared towards the company.
Geared towards proprietary data. Yeah.
And are they charging for it?
Not yet.
AIP? Yeah, not well, who knows? Maybe some people yes, maybe some people no.
Right now it's just to bring people in.
I mean, they haven't recognized any revenue yet. Carp explicitly said on the earnings call, we're not. Yep. And I was like, they brought in 533. All of it's off Foundry and Apollo and Gotham. None of it's off AIP. I thought some of it would. No, Carp was like, we will figure out how to monetize. Trust us. He said, "Trust me, bro," to Wall Street.
I think that's
but is it? So this is where I kind of get a question, and I want to hear Steve's thoughts as well. So, Chris and I had a great conversation about this last night of people using Microsoft 365 versus using Google Docs, right? So Office 365 or Windows 365, you're going to be paying for subscriptions for Excel and Word and PowerPoint and all those things. Versus if you use Google Docs, that shit's all free. But what they're hoping is that you're going to use is the Google Cloud Platform. Is it going to be the same sort of technology or method of sales that Palantir is trying to do? They hope that you use AIP because that plugs directly into Foundry, and they'll really charge you on the Foundry side, but they're using AIP as a window to kind of get into your souls. So that's kind of my thought process is like, well, they don't really give a shit about if you're using AIP, or they care if you're using AIP. They don't care about charging for AIP because hopefully they realize it's like, well, how do we use AIP? Well, you have to set up all this data in a very categorized sort of manner. Well, how do we do that? Well, here's this product called Foundry, which is set up and is 5 years ahead of whatever the hell you can build internally. we can do it for you in about 18 months.
So this is interesting.
You
You're saying Foundry is what monetizes. AIP is the Trojan horse. You don't even think AIP is the thing that makes.
Yeah, haven't you seen all the Trojan horses all over Twitter that people having all this shit?
That's true. That's true.
AIP, I mean Foundry, Gotham, Apollo, and then AIP is the.
All right, Steve, let's get you in this. What do you think?
I'm going to give you 3 scenarios.
Okay.
A wishful / unrealistic, a bull and a bear.
Okay.
The unrealistic, and I hope it freaking happens, but I think this is a very big long shot, is 2026.
$100 a share at 2026.
A huge long shot, wishful thinking, but it could be a possibility. And the only reason I say that is because if you catch a real AI boom in a economy where the Fed is cutting rates and the Fed gets to 4.3% in 2025, and they go lower and get under 4% in 2026, cost of capital is going to be reduced so much that businesses are more likely to expand. Whether they're hitting the debt markets, issuing bonds out to 2055, they're going to be expanding, and you could see a ton of deals. You could see a bull market, and this could get caught up in mania again. So that's like a very low possibility.
That could happen. That could very
possible.
well happen. It might be a meme sell-off with a bunch of stocks, but it could happen.
Because I do think we're headed into a bull market. We're not headed into a recession. And I could go over the economics behind that at a different time and make a full presentation, but I have a ton of slides about it.
Oh, we know. You love your PowerPoints. We know.
My bear case is that the software doesn't really catch on from where we are today. The deals stop, they curtail and then stop, and we just kind of stay stagnant. My bull case, to get to 100 a share, you need to roughly 6.7x to do that.
Correct.
You need a market cap of about 204, 205 billion. So to get there, you need about just over 5 billion of free cash flow at a multiple about 41x. Now,
you guys, I'm sorry, I don't want to interrupt.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, you guys keep referring, I don't know if it was Amit or Matt, but free cash flow. And I keep bringing myself back to income. And I guess income's not so important because free cash flow is more important. Income can be manipulated and such.
Yeah,
so really what it comes down to is free cash flow, I guess.
Yeah, they're both measures of profitability. Earnings per share is based off of operating income or earnings from operations, and free cash flow is just simply cash from operations minus CapEx. And it's much harder to be manipulated because you don't have charges against the company, income taxes, or any of that stuff. So companies can do write-downs or write-offs, et cetera, et cetera. So some people look at price to free cash flow multiples. And at least when I look at what companies are doing, putting a 35 to 45 price to free cash flow multiple on Palantir isn't that crazy when Pepsi trades at 45 times free cash flow. Microsoft trades at over 40 times free cash flow. Meta trades in the 30s. Apple trades at 33. I mean, it's not crazy for a growth company to have that type of free cash flow multiple. So the question that I have in a realistic case is, when does Palantir get to roughly 5 billion of annual free cash flow? And maybe
what are we at right now in annual free cash flow? Like
800 million, 800 something million.
Adjusted is going to be like 400 to 500, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, adjusted.
So right now, on an annual basis.
While you're saying that, let me just read Coach Rep comment. He says Foundry plus AIP gives you everything from the semantic understanding of the data along with the tools to actually perform the work. And he also says the ontology provides a semantic layer to help Gen AI understand your data. It also provides the tools and actions the LLM can do to be the meaningful work. So the semantic thing he's talking about is like the thing that interprets how many doors you have in your inventory if you're a car manufacturer. And then the tooling infrastructure is actually asking the LLM, how many doors do I have? And so those two combine together to give the answers. Go ahead, Steve.
So we're at about 380 million right now, free cash flow. regular straight, not adjusted. So you got to think over the next decade, because the way I look at it is computing doesn't stay stagnant. It's one of the quickest morphing industries there is. And you look at how just computing in general has changed drastically over the past 2 decades. I don't think that the way that we are going to do things in the future is the way that we do it today. I mean, you look at just products like Workday for back office enterprise, and you look at how companies are run. I think you're going to see a lot of adoption in these players. And if Palantir is a top tier AI and we're at the forefront of it, there could be a huge roadmap on the TAM. And if there is, there's certainly a path to generating 4 or 5 billion free cash flow. And when you put a normalized multiple on that, it could get
which is what 30 multiple.
Yeah, I mean, look, if you have Microsoft and Apple trading in the 33 to 43 range, and if Palantir grows quicker than them, I don't think it's crazy assigning a similar multiple or even a higher multiple. I mean, look, for Pepsi to trade, I keep going back to Pepsi because it's a boring industrial. For them to trade at 45 times free cash flow, what's the argument that Palantir shouldn't?
And on top of that, you got a retail base that's ready to buy for good or for worse.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm looking at it just from a numbers standpoint.
I know. I'm just saying, if the numbers get exciting,
retail base, it could happen 2026.
Yeah, that's my case for why.
Look, I need to say it once again. That is a huge long shot. Do not invest because I have a theory about that. But look, if you go to the St. Louis Fed and you look at what they're going to do at rates are projected to start being cut next year. It's economics 101. When the cost of capital is less, business expansion is more because you're borrowing at a cheaper rate. I mean, that's
so that doesn't impact Palantir as much because they're not using any debt.
No. But
yeah, but the other companies.
Oh, got it.
So businesses are more likely to take on new projects with implementation, implement new software, which is great for Palantir because the cost of capital, if they need to issue bonds or issue shares for equity to pay for it, they're more likely to do in a low cost environment.
Thank you. Yep. Thank you.
Thank you guys. Appreciate it.
This is awesome. Thank you, Scott. I'll see you soon.
Absolutely. Bye, guys.